Imagine, picture this. It's 1917. World War I is just raging on, and a soldier is lying wounded on a battlefield.
Wow.
His face is ravaged by an exploding shell. He survives the immediate trauma, but what kind of life awaits him now?
Right.
That is just one of the many stories we're going to explore today as we deep dive into the world of Sir Harold Gillies, the
Wow.
pioneering surgeon who rebuilt faces and lives during and after World War I. Will be guided by historian Lindsay Fitzharris and her fascinating book, The Facemaker.
It really captures the essence of resilience
Yes.
and the human spirit's ability to adapt and overcome even the most daunting challenges.
Yeah, Fitzharris does an incredible job painting a picture of what surgery was like back then. Rudimentary anesthesia, the ever-present risk of infection,
Right.
and facial reconstruction was really in its infancy.
What's so fascinating is that there was no real precedent for the kind of injuries Gillies was seeing.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of facial trauma caused by modern warfare was unprecedented. Like, imagine on the first day of the Battle of the Somme alone, there were 60,000 casualties.
Wow, it's hard to even fathom that number.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the overwhelming need for surgeons like Gillies. So tell me more about his journey. What drew him to this incredibly challenging field?
Well, Gillies was originally an ear, nose, and throat surgeon.
Okay.
But after witnessing the horrific facial injuries soldiers were sustaining on the front lines, he felt drawn to this new and demanding area of surgery.
So there was a rather colorful character, a dentist named Charles Vladier,
Oh, yes.
who played a significant role in steering Gillies towards facial reconstruction.
Oh, absolutely. Vladier was quite a figure.
Okay.
Imagine him driving up to the front lines in a Rolls-Royce outfitted with a dental chair.
Wow.
He really embodied the chaotic energy and desperate need for innovation that characterized wartime.
Yeah, that image alone speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So how did Vladier influence Gillies?
Vladier showed Gillies the potential of facial reconstruction,
Oh.
how it could transform lives. He was a real pioneer in his own right. Using dental techniques to address facial injuries, he really ignited a passion in Gillies for this work.
It sounds like they were both driven by a deep desire to help these men who had sacrificed so much.
Exactly. And it was uncharted territory for Gillies.
Yeah.
There were no textbooks for this, no established procedures. He was inventing techniques as he went along, often operating for hours on end.
So he was a true innovator, forced to think on his feet and develop solutions to problems that had never been encountered before.
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges he faced was anesthesia.
Oh, wow.
Think about it, operating on a severely injured face while the patient is breathing ether back into yours.
Oh, that's a horrifying thought.
Right?
It must have been incredibly difficult and dangerous for both the surgeon and the patient.
It was. And this actually spurred advancements in anesthesia techniques,
Right.
running parallel to the evolution of plastic surgery. They had to come up with ways to administer anesthesia that wouldn't obstruct the surgeon's view or further endanger the patient.
It's amazing to think about the hurdles they had to overcome just to perform these surgeries.
Yeah.
But Gillies' dedication went beyond just the technical aspects, didn't it?
Yeah.
He really understood the emotional toll these injuries took on his patients.
Yes, he did. Fitzharris talks about how soldiers with facial differences often faced societal prejudice and isolation. Imagine returning home, a hero, yet feeling like a monster because of your appearance.
Right.
Some even had engagements broken off because of their disfigurement.
It's heartbreaking to think about. These men had already endured so much,
Yeah.
both physically and mentally,
Right.
on the battlefield, and then to be met with such rejection and fear upon their return home.
It's a stark reminder that the wounds of war run far deeper than what's visible on the surface.
Absolutely. And that's where Gillies' empathy and understanding really shine through.
Yeah.
He wasn't just focused on repairing flesh and bone.
Right.
He wanted to rebuild confidence and a sense of normalcy for these men.
A powerful example of this is the story of Private Walter Ashworth. He suffered a terrible facial injury and tragically lost his fiancée because of it.
Oh.
He eventually did find love again, but his employer, a tailor, made him work in the back of the shop so customers wouldn't be frightened by his appearance.
How awful.
Right.
He was essentially punished for his injuries,
Yeah.
even after proving his resilience by finding love again. It really highlights the societal stigma surrounding facial differences.
Yes, and it underscores why Gillies' work was so crucial.
Wow.
He wasn't just a surgeon, he was a compassionate human being who understood the profound impact these injuries had on the lives of his patients.
So beyond his wartime work, what else could you tell us about Gillies' impact on the field of plastic surgery?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
So Gillies' work extended far beyond the battlefields of World War I.
Mm.
In fact, he went on to pioneer procedures that would shape the entire field of plastic surgery.
What's fascinating is that Gillies didn't just treat war injuries. He pushed the boundaries of what was possible, even performing the first successful phalloplasty on a trans man named Michael Dillon in 1949.
That's incredible,
Yeah.
especially considering the societal norms of the time.
Right.
Phalloplasty, for those who may not know, is a surgical procedure to construct a penis.
Yeah.
For Gillies to undertake such a groundbreaking procedure back in 1949 speaks volumes about his progressive thinking and his commitment to pushing the boundaries of surgical possibilities.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember the context.
Yeah.
1949, gender affirmation surgery was almost unheard of. The media scrutiny and societal backlash Gillies faced were immense. Yet he stood by Dillon even when the press outed him, which created a media frenzy.
That level of support and understanding must have meant the world to Dillon, especially during such a challenging time. It really speaks to Gillies' character and his unwavering belief in the power of surgery to transform lives, not just physically, but emotionally as well.
Gillies' impact on the field of plastic surgery extended beyond specific procedures. He actually helped shape the very definition of the field. He made a distinction between returning to normal and surpassing normal in his approach to surgery.
That's a really interesting distinction.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on what he meant by that?
Of course, reconstructive surgery, as Gillies saw it, was about returning to normal. It was about restoring function and appearance as close as possible to what was lost due to injury or illness. But he also recognized that some individuals sought to go beyond simply restoring what was lost.
Right.
They wanted to enhance or modify their appearance for various reasons. This is what he referred to as surpassing normal, which is
Sure.
the foundation of what we know today as cosmetic surgery.
So Gillies recognized that plastic surgery wasn't just about fixing what was broken.
Right.
It could also be about empowering individuals to achieve their desired appearance, whatever that may be. It's an incredibly forward-thinking perspective, especially for his time.
It really is. And this distinction he made highlights the complex and multifaceted nature of the field he helped pioneer. It acknowledges the diverse motivations and goals people have when it comes to altering their appearance.
Gillies' contributions to the field of plastic surgery were widely recognized, weren't they?
Absolutely.
Wow.
He was knighted for his pioneering work, a testament to his impact and the lives he touched. And Fitzharris, while researching her book, uncovered a letter addressed to Gillies as Dear Facemaker, a touching and personal testament to the impact he had on his patients. It's no wonder she chose that as the title of her book.
That's a lovely detail.
Ah,
The title itself is so evocative. It speaks to the artistry and humanity that Gillies brought to his work. It's not just about fixing faces, it's about about restoring not just physical features, but also a sense of self and identity.
precisely. And the book's cover art beautifully reflects this sentiment. The UK edition features a silhouette of a World War I soldier, or Tommy as they were called, with his face composed of multiple faces.
Right.
It's a haunting and powerful image reflecting the collective trauma experienced by these men, but also the possibility of piecing together a new whole, a new identity from the fragments.
It's an incredibly striking image that really captures the essence of the book and Gillies' work. Speaking of connecting the past to the present, isn't it fascinating that Gillies' own great-great-nephew actor, Daniel Gillies, narrates the audiobook?
It is. It must have been such a profound experience for him to connect with his ancestors' legacy in such a personal way.
I can only imagine. It's a beautiful reminder that the stories of the past are never truly gone. They live on in the present, shaping who we are and how we understand the world around us.
So as we reflect on Gillies' life and work, a question that naturally arises is what can we learn from his story? How can we apply his insights and principles to our own lives and perspectives today?
That's a great question. What stands out to you?
Well, one key takeaway for me is the importance of empathy and understanding. Gillies' story challenges us to examine our own biases and perceptions of those who may look different from us. Do we still harbor prejudices consciously or unconsciously that create invisible wounds, much like the societal prejudices faced by Gillies' patients?
It's a sobering thought. In a world that often values surface appearances, it's easy to forget the deeper, invisible struggles that people may be carrying. Gillies' work reminds us to look beyond the surface, to see the individual, and to recognize the shared humanity that connects us all.
Exactly. And that's a message that resonates powerfully today as we grapple with issues of diversity, inclusion, and acceptance.
Right.
Gillies' work reminds us that true healing goes beyond the physical. It's about restoring dignity, confidence, and a sense of belonging.
It's about creating a world where people feel seen and valued for who they truly are, regardless of their physical appearance. And that's a mission we can all embrace, regardless of our profession or background.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every individual and treating each other with kindness, compassion, and respect.
So for our listeners out there, what resonated most with you about Gilly's story? What's one thing you'll take away from this deep dive?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. But before we wrap up, we wanted to leave you with a final thought, something to ponder as you go about your day. It's a question that Fitzharris doesn't explicitly address in her book, but it's something that naturally arises from reflecting on Gilly's work and legacy.
Okay.
What if we could apply Gilly's pioneering work beyond individual patients? What if his techniques and principles could be used to address larger societal wounds, the scars that divide communities and nations?
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this extraordinary life of Sir Harold Gillies, I'm left with this lingering question: could we apply his approach to healing and reconstruction to the world at large?
It's a compelling thought, isn't it? If Gillies could rebuild shattered faces and spirits, could we take inspiration from his work to address the fractures we see in society today?
Exactly. The challenges we face, social, political, environmental, often feel overwhelming. But Gillies' story reminds us that even amidst immense devastation, there is always potential for renewal and transformation.
And he didn't just patch people up. He saw the individual understood their needs and sought to restore not only their physical form, but also their sense of self-worth. Could we adopt a similar approach when tackling issues like inequality or climate change?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what would it look like to approach those issues with the same level of empathy, ingenuity, and unwavering dedication that Gillies brought to his patients?
It's a question worth pondering, and I believe Gilly's legacy offers us a roadmap. He dared to push boundaries to imagine new possibilities. He reminds us that change is possible even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
We might not all be surgeons, but we can all strive to be facemakers in our own way, working to mend the fractures in our communities, our relationships, and our world.
So, dear listeners, as you go about your day, we challenge you to carry this thought with you. How can you be a facemaker in your own sphere of influence?
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We hope you found it as thought-provoking and inspiring as we did.
Be sure to subscribe and join us next time for another fascinating exploration. Until then, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.